Washington president secure a support base. His pivot to the interior without yield any fruit. Is division in the opposition enough for Weah to clinch a second term? Join me, Menipake Dumoy, as I analyze the twists and turns on the Dumoy factor. George Manuel Weah pull it off again? Can the discredited footballer turned politician turned president secure a second term despite hardship and large defection of his youthful urban support base? His pivot to the interior without yield any fruit. Is division in the opposition enough for Weah to clinch a second term? Join me, Menipake Dumoy, as I analyze the twists and turns on the Dumoy factor this and every weekday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m.
The Liberian government officials concerned about the arrest of Isaac Tokpa. Isaac Tokpa was apparently trying, has my output, how's the audio from my end?
The audio is okay this morning.
Beautiful. Well, folks, over the last 24 hours, it's been quite dramatic. A number of events have happened. Alice Cummings was forced to let Isaac Tokpa go. He asked for his resignation. And Isaac Tokpa gave his resignation. It was under tremendous pressure. Alice Cummings himself has been under tremendous pressure. And I woke up this morning to the news that Isaac Tokpa was arrested by Sierra Leonean authorities at the border at Bull Waterside, and has ever since been turned over to the National Security Agency of Liberia, the NSA. To be honest, I was shocked.
Wow.
That's the news to which I woke up. It is credible. It is confirmed. Isaac Tokpa, as we speak, is in the custody of the Liberian authorities. I have also been informed that Isaac Tokpa, who bears an American passport, that the Americans have contacted the Liberian government officials concerned about the arrest of Isaac Tokpa. Isaac Tokpa was apparently trying to abscond, to leave the country. When we published the story or the passages of the book written by Isaac Tokpa and Emmanuel Clark, everyone was virtually, admittedly, in support of Mr. Weah and his wife, Mrs. Weah. Perhaps there's never been a time since Weah became president that he's received this overwhelming public sympathy and support. Check the mind tune up, guys.
It's up and running.
Okay, you Janga Ikone, I'm sorry, refresh your device. It gets damn annoying to have to tell you people simple things. Or take your device and throw it in the water. It's damn annoying. Simple thing for you to do. Refresh your device. Refresh your damn device. And I'm not gonna kind of explain what refresh means. So At no time has Mr. Weah received this amount of public sympathy than he's getting now from everybody, because people feel that what Ivah and Emmanuel Clark did was just downright wrong and unacceptable and just below the belt. But the reaction of the government to what Ivah did has to be measured, and they have to be careful. Measured, and they have to be careful. Now, I'm Henry Costa. I earned my place as a voice for the voiceless, speaking truth to power, fighting for the people's rights, championing democracy. I'm a sucker for human rights and the rule of law. You do not expect me to sit down here and celebrate
I am a sucker for human rights. Costa tries to put the brake on his cooperation with the Weah government against the opposition. Costa is having a bit of a Judas moment. I think after they decided to crucify Jesus, those of you who read your Bibles better than me would know that there was a moment when Judas had a second thought, but it was too late. When you work in concert with an irresponsible, dictatorial, and ruthless government like George Manuel Weah's government, you will have stains of blood on your hands. So Costa tries to wash his hands. He tries to talk about liberty and the rights of people. He tries to play Voltaire. I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. Liberia must come of age. This is a country that's almost 200 years old, and it's shameful that our intellectual capacity is so challenged that people who should know better, people who should know way better, condone mediocrity. So yesterday, the debate was on what the limits are, what one can do and what one cannot do, what one can say and what one cannot say in the retelling of our stories. I am going to go on the record. I will take the risk. I would take the risk of being ostracized by even some of my own people. We woke up and said we want to follow American democracy. Nobody forced us. This country elected to be a democracy on its own. And in a democracy, you don't just hear things you want to hear. In a democracy, there are things that you feel is not polite. I know many religious leaders who do not approve of the way the girls on the street dress. They call it indecent also. Should they have the power to tell them how to dress? Should we give, you see, we want to be part of a liberal, open democracy with a backward 20th century culture. We want a 21st century modern democracy with all of the freedoms. But we want to hold our maybe 18th or 12th century values. Democracy is a super highway of ideas. some ideas that you may not like. And then I asked the question about what Ivah wrote. Ivah is explaining in that book a conversation that he had with George Weah. That's history. That is history. I'm sorry, it's history. And history is not always nice. History is not always nice. I think Ivah disapproved of the way the president spoke about his wife. And that's why he broke the silence around the way this man discussed his own wife. And I think there has to be space for having that discussion and debate too. I think yesterday we aided and abetted a dictator. I think yesterday we gave George Weah cover to misbehave. I think yesterday we gave him a license. We gave him the power of public opinion. We gave him the power of public opinion. The high-mindedness, the hypocrisy, the double-speak, the two tongues. Henry Pedro Costa sat on his Costa show and called a young lady who had refused to have an abortion for Mo Ali, the Secretary General of the United Party. He called her a hobojo, he called her a prostitute. Henry Costa did that. And he used that same mouth. He used the same mouth that he used to call a young lady who refused to put her life at risk, who refused to abort her baby, who exercised control over her own body. Henry Costa attacked, isolated, insulted, and systematically discredited her and her story. Because this was a political ally. Because Mo Ali was a political ally. The Ali stand up and the Tokpa stand up. It is not that we seek moral equivalence. We are not saying this person did it, so it's good. I am objectively telling you that Ivah Tokpa can write whatever he wants to write. History is in fact a debate. History is a debate. There's no settled. All the matters are not always settled. This is what he remembers from his exchanges with Weah at the time. No one has stopped to ask the question, did Weah actually say those words? And then for those who act all high, mighty, and Western, because for us Africans, Westernization is the standard. CNN broadcasted a video of Donald Trump talking in demeaning manner about women. The people in America were intelligent, so they went after Donald Trump. Let's consider Ivah Tokpa to just be CNN, the medium through which the information is transported. That's what Ivah did. You see, and once you are done saying that Ivah Tokpa was wrong and what he did was wrong and it was unacceptable and so on and so forth, you have given George Weah a justification to go out now and to do what he's doing to Ivah. Oh, after all, this is a man who do not respect the women of Liberia. Nonsense. Nonsense. There's nothing in there that says he doesn't respect the rights of the women of Liberia. In fact, he respects them so much, he's not going to condone someone saying such things about them. But we must come of age. This cannot be the country where we sweep everything under the carpet. Yes, we have a very uncomfortable history. We have to deal with things. That's why Liberia as a country, the whole country has a psychological problem. The Liberian psychology is wrong. The Liberian psychology is wrong. And everybody yesterday was taking the moral high ground. Everybody was playing Jesus yesterday. And now, when George Weah does what he feels justified to do, we're all hollering. Well, our voices ring hollow. Our voices ring hollow. Academic freedom, the freedom to conduct research, to write history, to express thoughts. This is not Tehran. This is not Iran. This is not a theocracy. And George Weah is not a god. And George Weah is not a god. I will tell you what disrespects womanhood. When rape is reported and nothing is done about it. When you have a government that does not attend to the issue of rape, that's a threat to womanhood. What happened when the women got in the street to protest against the rising rape? Did George Weah stand up? Did he show up? Has he delivered on the promise of being the feminist in chief? What is the economic circumstances of women in Liberia? Where are the opportunities for anybody under George Weah? Oh, now the Ministry of Gender can have a press conference. The Ministry of Gender is actually in existence. When young girls are being abused up and down this country and nothing is done about it, but the intellectual expression of an idea, a critical retelling of the Weah story, a critical examination of a public figure, where he tells the people he is and who he actually is, a testament to Weah's character. Then, this is when state power is used, deployed to coerce. First of all, speech crime in Liberia is non-existent. Speech crime is non-existent. You can say what you want. You can write what you want. We can have our opinions of it. You have a right to not respect Ivah Tokpa. You have a right to not want to talk to him. Don't invite him to dinner. Don't bring him in your company. Stay away from him. Don't talk to him. You have a right to describe his writing in whatever manner you choose. But he has a right. The way society view ideas change over time. It used to be a crime to call yourself a Christian. It used to be a crime to be black and free in parts of America. It used to be a crime. They hung some of the apostles. They turned them upside down and cut their heads for just saying they believe in Jesus Christ, for just even saying that Jesus was the Son of God. Today is the Christians who are in majority. It's the Christians that hold political power. They are setting the standards. They became the majority. And of course, they will oppress minority views. What is democracy? It's ruled by the majority with respect for the minority, for the rights of the minority. In today's Liberia, a book containing your thoughts or your version of history is not allowed if it pricks the sensitivity of the public. It's okay for majority of Liberians to find Isaac's book disgusting. It's okay. There shouldn't be a legal consequence of that. We can have the debate.
I think it was this British Prime Minister Churchill that says better to Georgia than to war. George Orwell, the English playwright, by the way, George Orwell was his pen name. But he said, if liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear. The question of freedom of speech is not about protecting regular, ordinary speech. If somebody comes to tell you hello, they don't need freedom of speech. If someone wants to tell you that you are King George, they don't need freedom of speech. If someone wants to say, George, we will rule for 100 years, they don't need freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is about restraining the government to allow for the governed to express their thoughts freely. Freedom of speech is not about the regular conversation that we have. We don't need freedom of speech to speak to each other and say, hello, good morning, how are you? How's your family? What are your plans? Sycophants do not need freedom of speech. And you will never be respected as an intelligent man if you're unable to take criticism in strides. And you're unable to sustain the debate on the intellectual front. We should have continued to have this debate. We should have been allowed to x-ray look, a lot of things have happened in this country. A young lady is found dead. An auditor is found dead on Broad Street. The Ministry of Gender doesn't speak. Young girls are getting raped. The Minister of Gender doesn't speak. An offensive piece of literature comes out about the First Lady. And regardless of your position on the matter, state power is then introduced into the equation. I thought we were having a moral debate. I thought we were now examining the content of Ivah Tokpa's book. Henry Pedro Costa facilitated the arrest and intimidation of Ivah Tokpa, and if any physical harm is done to him, Henry Pedro Costa has been an accomplice to human rights abuse. And I hope anybody taking legal action to protect the rights of Ivah Tokpa in Western courts will attach Henry Costa's name to human rights violations. That this Henry Pedro Costa's outlet can be made the equivalent of Radio Kigali. Radio Kigali was now an opposition radio station. Radio Kigali was a pro-government media Malaysia. Henry Pedro Costa is part of a pro-government media Malaysia. The first thing you do in warfare is that you demonize the enemy. You see, men by themselves, by nature, they are not minded to hurt each other. Hate is taught. You have to systematically teach your men to hate the quote-unquote enemies. And so you need intellectuals. Intellectuals like Costa to justify the murder, the mayhem, the maltreatment. And so the show that Costa did this morning condemning Weah for the arrest of Ivah Tokpa is a mere charade, is a veil. This is after establishing deep in the minds of the people that Ivah had committed some deep wrong. The real question here, even if we were to backtrack and go back to the real debate, is whether or not Ivah was the author of those words, or that he lifted it to confront the way Liberian men talk about their women, or the way George Manuel Weah spoke about his wife, and to critically assess his character. After all, Weah holds high office, bears the standard of the republic. Now violence is introduced into what was supposed to be an intellectual discourse. So again, the pistol is brought, the AK-47 is brought, the barrel of the gun is introduced. Show you your limit. In Liberia, you're not free to think. You're not free to write. You can write, you can exercise your democratic rights to the extent that you do not offend Weah or Executive Mansion. If the Weahs are involved, you're in trouble. I made a post on my page, and people, some people were raising issues, and I told them to get out of my face. This society, as much as we want to vote, is our society. We can question it. We can question the standard that society sets, because we are society. I mean, the pursuit of votes should not cower us. Nobody want to vote for a coward. No one want to vote for someone who is who is two-faced. I want to shoot straight. This society that cheers on, Prophet Key cannot lecture anybody on decency. This is the same damn society. Why does Prophet Key get all those likes and views and people sending money? This is the same Liberia. This is the same Liberia. And Ivah is not the one saying those things about the woman. It was her husband that related it. The question of what can be broadcasted, what can be written about. And then I use the international standard. And then I use the good old, holy, righteous American standard, the one Liberians love. In your United States of America, aka heaven, the intellectual north of the Liberian, CNN broadcasted a video, an audio, where the man who went on to become America's president was heard saying way more offensive things than what was recorded in those passages. So Ivah merely wrote the words of the president as he recalls. Now, this could open Ivah up to civil lawsuit. That one will not be screaming and shouting Bloody Mary. That's because the courtroom is also a place for the documentation of history. It's also a continuation of the debate, albeit in a more structured environment. This is a civil life. We either choose to go back to our villages, or we do this democracy thing right. Everyone to go back and be villagers, where the chief is the king or whatever, and he sets the rules, and there are no pre-written rules. There's no third-party enforcer. There's no rule of law. Liberian government officials like to talk about rule of law, but rule of law is not for ordinary citizens. Rule of law is about restraining the power of the state. The state controls the citizens. That's why a policeman can tell you which side of the road your car can drive on, because he has a gun. But who controls the policeman and his bosses? In a civilized society, it's supposed to be the law. Now, let's look at let's look at the Liberian government story. They caught Ivah trying to sneak, quote unquote, sneak out of the country. Ivah has a right to leave Liberia. He has a right to leave Liberia. There's no immigration offense called sneaking out of the country. He has a right to leave Liberia. There's no law. In fact, the Constitution states very clearly that we have the freedom to enter and exit the republic. Ivah is not under the control of the immigration service. He's not a foreigner. The immigration service is meant to control foreigners, their movement, their settlement into Liberia. Their mandate is not to regulate Liberians. And you said you held him for his own security. Now, what danger was he in? Liberia is at peace. Sierra Leone is at peace. There are no rebels moving in the forest, thank God. There is no, what was the justification? What harm did he report that he feared that some Bugu man was around the border? Now, someone that you said you held for their own security because of the time that you saw him trying to leave the country, you are still holding him. It's after 10 a.m. That nonsense that happened at the border with Stanton, Stanton Witherspoon and them coordinating PR for the government, trying to take off the pressure from the government by saying that Tokpa has not been arrested. Let me tell you, it's coordinated. It's coordinated. When the news broke that Ivah was arrested, the Americans made a move. Several calls were made. And so the government is staging this thing, making it look like Ivah is free to move around, but he is not. Even if you're dumb, just watch the damn video where Ivah is told he's free to go, but an officer of the immigration service who is bearing an armed pistol has to accompany him in the private vehicle of Stanton Witherspoon. So Spoon FM also in this. The axis of evil. The axis of evil. Facilitating the GOL intimidation and harassment. Why is Stanton Witherspoon playing a role in shielding the government from public criticism around the arrest of Ivah Tokpa? History will remember Witherspoon and Henry Costa and all of the pen mercenaries that are being used to justify dictatorship. We will remember them. We will remember that Stanton Witherspoon is playing this game to conceal George Weah's ruthless behavior. If Ivah Tokpa is not under arrest, what is that immigration man doing in that car? Oh, he won't make sure that Ivah, who is a 6-year-old or a 2-year-old, can get home. He won't ask Ivah, what your horse color? He's going to turn Ivah over to his mother. So you want to make sure nothing happens to Ivah. Is he 2 years old? Is he 2-year-old? You condone it for somebody else. It's coming for you. This dictator we are breeding will have to live under him. This dictator we are nurturing and cheering on. You know what Hitler did? Hitler did not have enough votes to win election in Germany. I'll tell you the story of Hitler in a minute. Let's just take a few bites of this.
Weah pull it off again. Can the discredited footballer turned politician turned president secure a second term despite hardship and large defection of his youthful urban support base? His pivot to the interior, would I yield any fruit? Is division in the opposition enough for Weah to clinch a second term? Join me, Menipake Dumoy, as I analyze the twists and turns on the Dumoy Factor this and every weekday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Can George Weah pull it off again? Can the discredited footballer turned politician turned president secure a second term despite hardship and large defection of his youthful urban support base? His pivot to the interior, would I yield any fruit? Is division in the opposition enough for Weah to clinch a second term? Join me, Menipake Dumoy, as I analyze the twists and turns on the Dumoy Factor this and every weekday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m.
The elites in Germany made a sad mistake. The then German president was pushed by advisors to make Hitler chancellor. When Hitler had a political inconvenience, he organized the burning of the German parliament. And he used that as a cloak to go after his political enemies, arresting the communists and the socialists. The elites are asleep again. The elites are allowing their petty squabbles, their political positioning, their sophisticated political moves. They are allowing for a dictator to rise in Monrovia. They are creating a fertile ground for CDC and George Weah's ruthless dictatorship to take root. This is what is happening. The elites are asleep again. They're toting partisan line. They're trying to say the politically correct thing. The truth is, George Weah has to wear his big boy pants and take it. And take it. People say offensive things about political leaders. For over a year, for over 2 years, for over 4 years, there's been a malicious lie told in the Liberian press that Alexander Cummings was gay. It's gone unchecked. Nobody has been outraged by that. We take it. We take it. When you're confident in who you are, people can say anything. And this is a free society. We are as a president, not a king. It's not a king. And if we don't stand up, and if everyone's trying to keep their job, everyone's trying to keep their contract, everybody's playing nice, everyone wants to win an election, everyone is angling, this is how we will lose society. And even if the masses are screaming that for someone's head, we don't chop it off. It was the same majority that said crucify him. That said crucify him. That it was better to kill Jesus than Barnabas. Sometimes the tyranny of the majority is brought about by misinformation, coordinated disinformation. Well choreographed. If anything happens to Ivah Tokpa, because I know they're not done with him, when the government start defining what arrest is, let me tell you what they're trying to do. When the government starts defining what an arrest is, this is what they're trying to do. Under the Constitution or under the laws of Liberia, when you are arrested, something starts happening. The clock starts. You can only be held for 48 hours without charge. So while Serena Cephas is cooking up ridiculous charges and he needs hours, they're burning your time. So you push him to LIS, then you push him to NSA, then you push him to another agency, and you push him to this other agency, and you claim he's free, but he's waiting, and you're questioning him. You're trying to make sure his tooth is not aching, and so on and so forth. Whatever nonsense excuse they can come up with, they will use that until they get to a point where Serena Cephas, the chief of lies, would have cooked up more bogus charges for which they can use as a basis to actually start using the word arrest. So they don't want 48 hours. That's why they don't use the word arrest. So all the definition of an arrest, that arrest means he should be sitting in a cell. No. Arrest is when, because of official action, he's unable to exercise his freedom of movement as he wills. That would be an arrest. That would be an arrest. The introduction of this new debate around what arrest is meant for the government to hold Ivah beyond 48 hours without charge. That's where they're going with it. So we're going to play the dictionary game all morning. What is an arrest? Is it an arrest when the person does not have handcuffs, blah, blah, blah? Nonsense. Ivah cannot come join me for my favorite club beer. We can't meet down the road here and go have club beer. You know, because I always talk about me drinking club beer, and I like club beer. I do like club beer. So can Ivah join me for beer this morning? Can we meet at my house and have beers without an immigration officer accompanying him? No, because he's arrested. You know, the government has one comfort. They're dealing with a low information society. A low information society, pretentious elites that are so fucking selfish, excuse my French, and narrow-minded that because of their political interest, they will allow a dictator to rise. This generation of Liberian thinkers and intellectual leaders have it so easy. We have it so easy. I mean, Baggers Matthews and them, they had to print leaflets. There was no Facebook Live. They couldn't express themselves easily as we can today. People paid a hefty price. Henry Burma Famule, both senior and junior, for the rights that we have. These rights are not free. And if we don't protect it, our children will not have it. If we don't protect it, our children will not have it. We must not give ground. We must not give ground in the slightest. Ivah is an intellectual. He's an author. He's written a book containing his ideas, his version of history. He has a right to give his opinion on Weah. And if Weah said vulgar things and Ivah wants to be truthful about how he recollects the past, he can document them. And then we can bring it into the public square and have a debate like a civilized grown-up society. But you don't get on your moral horse, high horses, score a political point. Everybody want to be politically correct all the time. The people do not even over time respect that. The people over time do not respect that. They respect a man who has foresight or a woman who has foresight and the intellectual fortitude to stand by their principles, even when it's unpopular. It's very dangerous politics to follow what is popular. It was me, Menipaka Dumo, who said, I was the one who said, that popularity is a perishable commodity, and nobody has more indiscipline than the masses. Their attention span, they forget, they contradict themselves. They expect leaders to observe more carefully and bend toward justice. When the people are wrong, don't follow them. When the people are wrong, don't follow them. These Liberian people have no right to crucify Ivah Tokpa for writing down what his then friend George Weah told him. If anything, Ivah is telling on Weah. It was Weah who authored those words, and Ivah found it unacceptable, and he documented it. So without Ivah's work, would we have known how Weah speaks in private? When the Moba Molu tip came out, everybody cheered it on. Nastier things were said. Ivah is a political rival of George Weah. He's a critic. He's a friend-turned critic. And so there's emotion involved in all of this. So Weah now is using the state police the State Immigration Service, the National Security Agency, that have a track record of political violence, of intimidation, of telling lies, planting things. A discredited Solicitor General. And we gave them the oxygen of public support. All because Henry Pedro Costa and the Unity Party couldn't take the fact that Alexander Benedict Cummings showed leadership, showed up, delivered a powerful response to the State of the Nation address. Yesterday, what we witnessed was not public outcry. It was coordination between Unity Party and CDC. They brought their combined force, of their communication team together across the platform and started to put pressure on the ANC. And we buckled. And let's face it, we bowed to the pressure. I mean, I respect the decision of Alexander Benedict Cummings to say, look, we cannot have this distraction, error of judgment on your part, because you do have an employment contract with Cummings as a chief of staff, not to do anything to undermine and distract and take away from the work that we're trying to do, which is saving the country and change. I can understand that in an employment context where Alexander Cummings takes that decision. I understand that. But something has to be said about the hypocrisy that we're witnessing, about the coordination between George Weah's discredited dictatorship, Henry Pedro Costa, the Unity Party, and other members of the intelligentsia that set out to systematically present Ivah as some moral deviant because he wrote a bit of uncomfortable history about what Weah himself volunteered. Leaving out the question, what kind of a man talks about his wife in that manner? Leaving out that vexing question. And then he spoke about rape. Rape is not just an issue for women. Rape is an issue for society. People who are fathers, brothers, and sisters attached to women. And if he documented what he knew, then that's just presentation of an uncomfortable history. It's not nice that the Americans and the Westerners that play nice today enslaved millions of Africans. It's not nice, but that story has to be told. And women were raped on slave plantations. It has to be documented. You can't whitewash history. You can't sweep it under the carpet. Because those who forget history are bound to repeat it. It's our history. There was cannibalism in Liberia during the war. At our lowest. It's documented. It's on YouTube. It's documented. We have to suck it up. It's our history. You can't pick and choose what history you will tell. It has happened. It can be documented. You are free to disagree with me. I'm happy to disagree. At least I'm truthful. That I want Liberian intellectuals to ruthlessly record history. I want them to write everything that they know, even if it's not comfortable. And then we can negotiate the factual basis of it. We can question the quality of their facts. We can say, you exaggerated here. We can say there are gaps. But we can't imprison you. I have confidence that Ivah will be all right. The pen is mightier than the sword. His intellect is something George Weah can never have. Ivah Tokpa is a prolific writer. He's a very intelligent man. Very intelligent man. And the world will support him. Even if Liberians in their small-mindedness and short-sightedness will play partisan politics until it is their son or their daughter that is involved. Yes, I campaign for Liberian votes. I talk about making Liberia a better country all the time, but I'm also aware of the shortcomings of you, my fellow countrymen, and myself. We're small-minded, village mentality. And we don't even do it in a consistent way. Go in the communities. How do people speak to each other? You would think, if you monitored Facebook yesterday, you would think that this is some society where morality and decency and the way people converse is of such high standard. Look at the way we talk. We don't even respect each other. Ivah took a mirror and he put it in the face of the president, and he didn't like the picture. And the society that voted him president didn't like the picture also. So an innocent man is being harassed illegally. Yesterday, Ivah took a piece of mirror to the pen and stuck it in the face of the president. The president didn't like the picture he saw. The 56 or 50-something-year-old George Weah is not proud. He's not proud of the maybe 30-something-year-old or 40-something-year-old George Weah that had that conversation. Whose fault is it? There's some things I did and said when I was in my 20s or 30s that may not be liked by myself today, but people have a right to confront me with it. George Weah sat down and he talked about his wife in that manner, and somebody felt they ought to document that so that people know that this is his true character. It's not the one that is whitewashed for campaign posters. Ivah gave the public a glimpse into the real Weah. You know, every candidate is processed to some level. And the sweet spot is if the public can get a good sense of who this person is when the cameras go off. When they feel no one is listening, that's the test of integrity. George Weah fails that test. The test of a decent man. It's not when you attend state programs and you have cameras around you and you talk about being feminist in chief. It's when you are sitting with the boys in the back. When you feel that no one will hear what you're saying. How you view women, how you objectify women. That is the real Weah. And Ivah showed the public. And because Weah is angry, Ivah must go to jail. Because in Liberia now, we have a dictatorship that was ushered in through democratic means. Most dictatorships were established through democracy. A weak person that wants to be a dictator doesn't always capture territory militarily.
Weah.
Sorry for the break. It has to do with the internet. Let me wrap up quickly. Not all dictators come bearing arms. Not all dictatorships start with the barrel of the gun. But all of them seek to silence academics, to silence critics, to arrest and intimidate people who threaten their power. All dictatorships have shared features. Under dictators, you can't say what you want. You can't say what you think. They burn books. They ban teachers. That's how dictatorships look. Not all of them come to power with guns. But all of them suppress free speech. All of them arrest their political opponents. When George Weah gave his fictitious State of the Nation address, the delusional one, yes, the one in which he claimed the state of the economy is strong, he also said something. There are no political prisoners. But 1 week or 2 weeks later, you have a political prisoner. Ivah Tokpa is a political prisoner. And we're following the developments. No, Stanton Witherspoon, we are not deceived by the media gimmick we saw. People going to Waterside and then they allowing Ivah to walk freely. But then immediately, a man with a gun is sat next to him. They're in a car. He's under arrest. He's under the control of that officer. There are 4 or 5 men in the car, and one person has a gun. Who do you think is the daddy? Who's running it? The test of our freedom is if he can come to visit me this morning and for us to hang out without any government official being present and probably gossip George Weah some more. Thanks for being there. This has been another edition of the Dumoy Factor. See you tomorrow with a brand new edition of the show. It's goodbye from me.